I love our stage. It's
Me
so
too.
cozy. It's very cozy.
I was just telling Arianna earlier that I feel like I'm going through a kind of a life transition, whether that means just trying to make the anxiety go away and sleep more. And your books have really been helping me do that. So we'll get into why. But firstly, to formally introduce you, I'm sure so many people know all the incredible things Arianna's done, but she is the co-founder, president, and editor-in-chief of the Huffington Post Media Group, the news and blog site that she launched in 2005. In 2012, the site won a Pulitzer Prize for national reporting. She's been named one of the world's most influential people by Time magazine, and she's graced Forbes' Most Powerful Women list. We're here to talk about her 15th book, which is incredible. I know. Do you hear that, everyone? And it's Sleep Revolution, Transforming Your Life One Night at a Time. So let's just, I think so you understand who our audience is tonight. Who pressed the snooze button this morning? Me. Who had their fourth cup of coffee at 4? Or a Diet Coke? Or like a weird donut that was left from someone? Like all these things we do because we're feeling a little compromised, maybe. So I wanted to say, firstly, to start, what was your relationship to sleep as a child? Your sister's here, so she can call you out on it too. But growing up in Athens, I read that your mother had a saying that was, "I abhor multitasking." So did that find a way into the family's sleep patterns as well?
So first of all, I'm just delighted to be here.
Oh, good.
And I'm so happy with the way you started the conversation, because this is an intimate conversation. We are talking about something that's very much part of our own lives, and sharing how we are doing with sleep, how happy or unhappy our relationship with sleep is an intimate thing to share with people you haven't met before. So can we all agree we can do that? So for me, I was very lucky. Agapi and I, my sister and I, were brought up by this amazing mother. We were living in a one-bedroom apartment. We really didn't have any money in Athens. But she always made us feel that sleep was incredibly important. My mother had never been to college, but she sounded like a modern sleep scientist. She would say to us, when you get enough sleep, everything will be better. Your grades, your health, and your happiness. And really, my chapter on science, as you know, is all about that. It's the proof in scientific terms that she was accurate. And I'm older, and if I had to work later on my homework, she would make sure that I was in the kitchen, that I would come into bed without waking up my sister, and all these things. So fast forward, I went to school in England, then I came to New York, and suddenly I bought into the whole cultural delusion that in order to succeed, you have to burn out. And we are all kind of victims of that delusion in some way or another, because we're swimming in it. And if you think of it, you may wonder, how can an entire society believe something so false, scientifically false? Well, just think of smoking. You can go back to the 50s and 60s and literally see doctors in white coats advertising cigarettes, saying things like, I smoke menthols because they refresh my throat. The science the science was conclusive that smoking was killing us, but it was still glamorous. People still smoked in movies, and people still smoked on aeroplanes. Can you imagine that? They had a smoking section, as though that made a difference. So we are in a similar situation now, where our views and our practices around sleep are shifting. Our culture is shifting, but we're in the middle of this cultural transition, so multiple behaviors are coexisting. But what is great is that many of you are young, So you have all your lives ahead of you to get it right. And those of you who are older, it's still an amazing moment to get it right and live the rest of your life not like a zombie, dragging yourself through the day, but actually fully present in your life and not just getting things done, but enjoying every step of the way.
And so, I mean, I know so many of us want to know about how you decided to start the Huffington Post. And then, well, I guess that isn't about sleep, but we'll get to your kind of wake up moment. What was the impulse to start the Huffington Post in 2005?
It really had to do with the fact that I wanted both to do journalism online, but also to open up a platform where anybody who had something interesting to say could say it and tell their stories and share their opinions. In fact, I'm going to ask all of you. This is how the Huffington Post blogging platform has grown, by me asking everybody to tell us your stories. I mean, you have a story about sleep. Tell us your story. And it doesn't matter where else you post it. It doesn't matter if you post on Cosmo or your Facebook or multiple places, because it's not about exclusivity. It's about sharing great stories and great content with our readers. And so, incidentally, to make it easy for you to share your stories, I'm going to give you my email address. It's arianna@huffingtonpost.com. Really easy.
You'll be inundated.
When you found a company, you get a good email address. So that was the impulse. But then what happened, I fell into the founder myth. You know, the founder myth is that if you're launching a company, you got to be up 24/7. You got to really put everything into it and sacrifice your health and your sleep. And it's just a complete delusion. 3/4 of startups fail. And maybe there is a correlation between founders not getting enough sleep and making terrible decisions and that dreadful failure rate. So I was lucky in that 2 years into building the Huffington Post, I collapsed. And I say I was lucky because it forced me to course correct. I collapsed from sleep deprivation and from burnout and hit my head on the way down, broke my cheekbone. And that was kind of the beginning of my looking at the science and recognizing that sleep is not optional.
And how, I mean, you break your cheek and you wake up and you go, I still have to run this company, which at the time was still a young...
A baby.
Yeah, a young company. How did you manage with, like, what were the practical things you did? Because so many of us get completely overwhelmed by emails. We're all anxious. A lot of us say the heart pitter patter, and we're like, look, and we're not happy about it. We want to change our lives. But how did you, in that position, still with all these responsibilities, make that shift?
Well, the first thing is, don't try to change your habits without first changing your minds about the importance of sleep. That's why I structured the book like that. You know, it starts with a chapter on the crisis. You need to understand the price we are paying, both in terms of our health and in terms of our productivity and creativity and in terms of our mental health. Sleep deprivation is at the foundation of a lot of the things you are describing. We are more anxious because we're sleep deprived. We are more depressed because we're sleep deprived. So they're all incredibly interconnected. Look at what's happening in colleges. We did a college tour last month. We reached over 350 colleges. And it is just amazing. There is a mental health crisis in colleges, and it is completely linked with sleep deprivation. You look at the suicides among students in Silicon Valley, and you see the stories about how many of them had not slept for a week, because then that becomes its own vicious cycle. You become too wired to sleep and to disconnect. But before we get to that point, we have an enormous amount of things that we can change once we recognize that when we get enough sleep, everything in our lives will be easier. So that pile of emails that you are trying to answer, you will know what are the important ones and what are not important. We cannot be slaves to our inbox. You know, if you want to create, your highest priority cannot be a zero inbox. So
Do you leave a
have
lot just ignored and unanswered?
No,
Because you have to?
What I do is I ruthlessly prioritize things. And there's a great quote I have in the book that says, everything changed in her life when she realized she had enough time for the things that really mattered. And that includes binge watching Netflix. I have only watched one episode of Game of Thrones. I like it. I would like to watch more, but I like my sleep more.
Well,
And
that's a huge point, because in the book and even in my life, you talk about using television now as a reward. So if we get all our emails done, we'll go home and we'll watch those episodes in our beds now, and instead of using the sleep as the lovely thing we get to do, then we're completely engaged. I mean, I did it the other night. A friend was like, you have to go and you have to see Outlander. It's so sexy. And I thought, okay, I'll try it out. And then I was obsessed, and I watched into the night several episodes, and then I'm exhausted because...
And did you fall asleep while watching them? Or
No, it's too good. It's too good.
Because that's what happens to a lot of people. They fall asleep while watching TV, and then at some point the TV wakes them up in the middle of the night, and then it's harder to go to sleep. So that has to change.
I know.
Starting tonight, I'm doing an intervention. Here is really the key. And after you read the science chapter, promise me you're not going to jump to the how-to part of the book, which is the second part of the book. Because if you don't fully convince yourselves of the importance of sleep for every aspect of your life, it will be harder to make small changes, take micro steps to change your habits.
The science of it
the science
is
so
fascinating.
and so fascinating and so relatively young. The first scientific sleep center in this country was not founded until 1970. Now there are over 2,500, and there is amazing, amazing science that is so conclusive for anybody here who is data-driven. So after that, you need to read the history to understand how come we came to believe something so false. And it goes back to the first industrial revolution, when we started thinking that we could treat human beings like machines. Mm-hmm. And that, in fact, people are not machines. Biologically, we're not designed to minimize downtime. If you have friends in the software business, they pride themselves at producing products that have 99% uptime or 99.9% uptime. And that became the goal for human beings. But a downtime is not a bug of the human system, it's a feature. So we need to celebrate it, we need to embrace it, because that's what means we're going to be fully recharged and ready to face whatever challenges life brings us.
Well, I'm thinking of Thomas Edison. Yes. There's a great quote in the book. Well, I mean, obviously he invented the light bulb, so he has all the reason to say this, but that sleep was obsolete and stupid and now going to become a bad habit.
Yeah, he actually thought sleep would be eliminated. So just think of it. You're living in Thomas Edison's time. He's obviously a cultural icon. He's a genius. He invented the light bulb. And he tells you that sleep is going to be eliminated. And therefore, you're kind of a bit of a fool that you think you need to sleep as long as you sleep. And there were many other cultural icons like that. And I had an email from Senator Harry Reid, who said to me that I read what Thomas Edison said when I was a young man, and I thought, I'm going to be a great man, and I'm going to forgo getting all the sleep that people are supposed to get. And he said when he read the science, he realized how wrong he had been, and he now is telling his staff, don't make the mistakes I made. Mm-hmm. And a lot of political leaders, not the presumptive Republican nominee, but more sane ones, are actually recognizing that as Bill Clinton said, he said that the biggest mistakes I made when I was tired. He did not specify what mistakes. But we can all identify with that. I can say that every hiring mistake I made when I was tired and I was checking the boxes and I wanted to get one more thing off my to-do list and I ignored the red flags and I ignored what was really going on between the words. But just to complete my thought about the most important transition to sleep is to pick a time before you're going to turn off your lights. Even if you start with 5 minutes, ideally 30 minutes before. And turn off all your devices. It doesn't matter if you have a TV in your bedroom, just turn it off 30 minutes before you're going to go to sleep. And you can't take the TV out, but you can take every other device, your laptop, your iPad, your smartphone, outside the bedroom and charge it outside the bedroom. Because that's your day. You know, your smartphone is the portal to everything in your life. And this is the time to disconnect from that and reconnect with yourself and get fully recharged. So in order to help that, I have a hot bath with Epsom salts and a flickering candle because it's good to rekindle the romance with sleep.
Exactly. It's not a punishment.
It's not a punishment.
Like I loved in the book you say, you know, with kids, like if you don't eat your vegetables, you're going to go to bed right now. And so you kind of start this relationship with sleep that's not exciting where you dream. It's not where, you know, this whole imaginative life comes. It's not where you're cozy and loved, you know, in the family
and have
home.
masses of pillows and make your bedroom incredibly inviting. You know, what we women do, we only, for example, wear beautiful lingerie at the beginning of a love affair. Why? It's your love affair with sleep. It doesn't matter if you're sleeping by yourself or have been with somebody for 30 years, it's for you. And so that basically the whole ritual of you have the hot bath, you have the Epsom salts, which basically kind of almost like wash away the day, and your brain begins to slow down. Because what wakes you up in the middle of the night is not your body. Your body is still exhausted. It's your brain. You haven't given it the opportunity to slow down. And anybody here who is a parent knows that when you have a baby or a very young child, you don't just drop it in bed, right? You give it a bath, you sing it a lullaby, you put it in its PJs. You tell it a story, often an imaginative story. That Good Night Moon is such a perfect book because it's like you're saying good night to your day. We need to do a good night for adults, you know, good night smartphone. And good night my to-do list, and good night my terrible boss, and good night my boyfriend who didn't text me back, or whatever it is that's preoccupying you. This is the time to say good night to all that, because this is your time. And then when I get into bed, I only read physical books. Never anything on screens. And read books that have nothing to do with your work. You know, read poetry, read novels, read history. And there is that, if you are reading The Sleep Revolution in bed, I will consider it a personal victory if it puts you to sleep. And then there is that great feeling when you are reading a book and you get drowsy and you can let it drop on the floor and you turn off the light and that's it.
Well, there's a fabulous study that I loved in the book, I think from the University of Vienna, that's about men and women sleeping together and sex. And it was so funny because it showed that in a couple, men are just happier sleeping with their partner. They're like, well, happy. But you ask a woman and she'll only sleep well, she'll sleep far better if she's had sex. Otherwise, a woman will wake up in the night a lot more. So it was just funny because I thought, you know, when we bring all these things into our phones and TV into our bed, there's not even the opportunity for the loveliness that makes everyone feel good.
Right. Well, basically, there is also a lot of science that shows that when you get more sleep, you get more sex. So apparently there's a 14% greater likelihood for a woman to have sex every extra hour of sleep she gets. So anybody here who wants sex, get more sleep. And also, there's this whole chapter in the book about sleeping together, because
So interesting.
it is so interesting. We somehow think that no matter what is going on, whether our partner is snoring, is sick, has to get up in the middle of the night to catch a flight, we have to sleep together, because if we don't sleep together, it's a sign that we don't love each other, or we don't have sex, or whatever. So first of all, this is just a complete illusion. And many people in Europe, don't sleep together every night. It doesn't mean you don't have sex. You can have sex and then go to a separate bedroom. Has that occurred to you? If you have a second bedroom, make it as inviting as your first bedroom. It's not a punishment. It just means that if you need to wake up fully restored, create the conditions for you to get fully restorative sleep. And if you want to sleep with your partner and your partner snores, get Bose noise-canceling headphones. Don't just suffer, because you're going to wake up in the morning and you will want to kill them.
I love that, because I did think you go to bed like, oh, lovely person. And then in the night, if that person's snoring, you're like, you're hateful. The emotions that happen when this innocent human is sleeping, and then all the things that run through your head, you're just creating a opportunity for anxiety and things to come up that's needless.
And instead of actually waking up and feeling the love for your partner, you're exhausted, irritable, cranky, which is what we all are when we are sleep deprived, and you inevitably take it out on the relationship.
To make a not so sexy segue, could you talk about the link between sleep and cancer and Alzheimer's? Because I
Yes.
found that really very compelling.
Well, there is a link, that's why I want you to read the science chapter, with every disease and sleep deprivation. The most obvious is obesity and diabetes, because when we are sleep deprived, we crave all the wrong things to eat. Literally, the hormones are activated in our body that crave sugars and bad carbs. So when you crave these things, when you're sleep deprived, it's not an accident. It's science. So that kind of means that if you're waking up to go to the gym because you want to lose weight and you're sleep deprived, you're better off sleeping an extra hour. That's just purely in terms of weight management.
Condense it for time, but that you went to Cambridge at 16 and you were the first foreign woman there. So I just wanted to know how...
I was not the first foreign woman at Cambridge. I was the first foreign woman to be a president of the Cambridge Union.
Okay. So what was it like leaving your home and going to Cambridge at 16? Yeah, I just wanted to know.
Well, I think, I don't know if you've ever been to Girton, where I was. It was, at the time, there were men's colleges and women's colleges, and Girton was a women's college. And I think it was like a Gothic, unbelievably depressing building, where my bedroom was so tiny. It was the size of these two chairs together, and I had a machine, not a machine. What do you call these things that you had to feed shillings into? A heater.
Oh, gosh.
Yes, a heater that you had to feed shillings into to get any heat, and then it would take it was like a long corridor taking you to the bathroom. And it was just such a painful thing to have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. And anyway, that was my experience. And I came from this incredibly loving home where my mother fed us constantly. And if we were not eating every 20 minutes, she thought something terrible would happen to us. So imagine leaving that environment and going to Cambridge. It was hard. Did I paint a picture of...
Yes, you did. And then,
Now back to Donald Trump, huh?
well, not even necessarily. I'm fascinated because I think in our politics today, people are so unwilling to change their mind, like to get more information about a topic and publicly say, now that I know more about this issue, I'm going to vote a different way. And so when you were on left, right, and center, you were the right. And
At the beginning.
At the beginning,
yeah.
but I'm wondering what policies were the ones that shifted your politics?
So, the right, first of all, was very different.
Yeah.
I was, pro-choice, pro-gay rights, pro-gun control. For me, it was all about my understanding of the role of government.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what changed my political positions when I realized that in order to solve the big social problems we're facing, we really had to use government appropriations. That changed everything. But look at where we are now. You have a situation which is unparalleled in American politics. And that's why at the Huffington Post, we've taken a very, very clear stance on Donald Trump from the beginning, which is first, we're covering him as a dangerous buffoon, a little bit like Kim Jong-un. You can be both dangerous and a buffoon. So first, we covered him in the entertainment section until the day he proposed to ban an entire religion from this country, which is like stunning. If you think of it, this is a country founded on religious freedom, and he proposed banning 1.6 billion Muslims. And so since then, we've been having a note, an editor's note under each story that covers him, that reminds our readers of who he is and of what he believes and of the fact that he incites violence at his rallies and of the fact that he's still a birther. He still believes the President of the United States was not born in this country. People have forgotten that because every week there is something more and more bizarre and absurd and horrific that is coming out of his mouth. But so I feel very strongly that we have a responsibility not to cover him like a normal candidate with whom we disagree. That would have been very different. You may not like the Republican nominee if it was Mitt Romney, but it doesn't mean that he's dangerous to everything America stands for. And there is a connection to sleep deprivation, believe it or not, because he regularly brags that he only gets 4 or 4.5 hours sleep, and in the middle of the night he wakes up and retweets Mussolini. And
Didn't he do that interview with a reporter having just had 1 hour of sleep?
yes, with Henry Blodgett. Yes, he had just 1 hour sleep in New Hampshire, and he bragged about that. And reporters, instead of saying, we have a candidate who is basically operating as though he's drunk, because that's the cognitive equivalent of getting 1 hour sleep, reporters just are in awe of that. So look at the energy the man has. But in fact, according to the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, he displays all the symptoms of chronic sleep deprivation. Regurgitation of incomprehensible pablum, mood swings, anger outbursts, paranoid tendencies. It's all there. And I think, when sooner rather than later, I hope he just leaves the scene. I hope that parents can use him as a cautionary tale. They can tell their children, look what will happen to you if you don't get enough sleep.
I think because we're at time, it's a great way to end our conversation, but open it up to the audience, because I know we have so many people who are eager to ask a question.
Thank you so much, first of all. Hasn't she been wonderful?
Oh, thanks. So lovely. I feel like there's so much more to talk about your entire life, but this is what we're here for. But would anyone like to ask a question? Please, this round so everyone can hear.
First of all, thank you. It's been extremely interesting. I'm Moshi. I work in strategy consulting on a global scale for American Express. And I think I got about 7.5 hours of sleep.
Fabulous.
So I have two questions for you. One is more interesting than the other. One is, what advice do you have for people that genuinely cannot remember their dreams? I love the idea of the notepad with a pen with a light on it. I would love to do that, but I can honestly tell you I've remembered my dreams maybe 1 out of 20 times.
And how
Regardless
many
of
hours
when
sleep
you
do you
wake up.
get normally?
I'd say 7 is average.
And do you wake up with an alarm?
Yes, every time.
So can you try at least over the weekend or when you're on vacation and to wake up without an alarm? Because if you always need an alarm to wake up, it means you're not getting all the sleep your body needs. You see, sleep comes in cycles, right? In the same way that if you do the laundry, you know, the laundry, in order to get really clean, has to go through all the cycles. If you get it out before it goes through the cycles, it's like wet and dirty. So in the same way, we need to ideally complete all the cycles when we sleep. If we wake up before we have completed all the cycles, we are not going to be operating at our best, and we are much less likely to remember our dreams. So the vast majority of us, unless we have a genetic mutation, which means we can do great on 4 hours, about 1% of us do that. So maybe there's one person here who has that genetic mutation. You cannot train yourself to have a genetic mutation. You either have it or you don't, in case you've forgotten biology 101. So for the rest of us, it's 7 to 9 hours. You get 7, you may need 8. Or you may need 8.5. I don't know. Only you know, and the way you know is you'll wake up without an alarm. You can set your alarm. That's what I do, just in case. But 95% of the time, I wake up without an alarm. But I need 8 hours. So if I get 7, I will need the alarm to wake me up. So check that out. And I promise you one thing. If you get all the sleep you need, you're going to feel so much more present and so much more, even more vital than you are feeling right now, and you will remember your dreams. Why don't you try it? Even when it's easy, like over the weekend or on vacation, and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. And are those REM cycles going to be consistently the same length, or can you not plan like that and say go to bed at X time and you'll complete your cycles with an alarm?
Well, the cycles are the same, but they get repeated. You know, it's like 4 cycles repeated. And I describe in the book what each cycle does. And REM sleep is when you remember your dreams. But if you are woken up at a different cycle, you're not going to remember your dreams.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Hello. My name is Serena Bahad. I manage partnerships at Dev Bootcamp, and I also am the founder of the Women in Tech Snapchat channel.
Great.
And a question I have is, of course, I value all your advice here and, you know, the focus on prioritization. But when you have those days where there's a deadline, it's crunch time, and, you know, you have to work through the night to make sure that you're hitting that. In order to make sure that the next day you're not, you know, at that dead capacity, you're not basically a drunk person, are there any hacks or tips in which you can be most productive?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, even with the best intentions, in all our lives, there will be those days when you have a sick child, you have a delayed flight, you're shipping a product, or you have a deadline when you are not going to get all the sleep you need. That's inevitable. That's part of life. We're talking about what do you do on an every night basis, not what will happen as an exception. The good news is that if on an every night basis you get all the sleep you need, when the exception needs you to pull an all-nighter or to not get all the sleep you need, you are not going to be already running on empty. So you're going to be much more effective. The best thing to reset the next day is having a nap. It's just magic. At the Huffington Post, we have 2 nap rooms. They are now perpetually full. And what I predict is that very soon, I think in the next 2 years, nap rooms in offices will be as common as conference rooms. because it's the most productive way to reset yourself and recharge yourself and be able not to have a completely wasted day.
Is there any science between like how long of a nap is
20
most effective?
minutes is normally enough. But if you're so exhausted, like if you literally have not pulled an all-nighter, then let yourself have as long a nap as you want. Because the time that you work is going to be so much more effective.
Hello, I'm Sophie Halpfura, Strategy Director on Adidas Originals. What advice do you have for people that have to do a lot of international travel in different time zones?
Great question. I have a whole section on travel in the book, and I travel a lot. So let me tell you about some of my tips. First of all, I have a sleep kit that I always travel with. It's always packed in my overnight bag. And it includes a beautiful silk eye mask, because, you know, on planes they give you eye masks because they're plastic and horrible. My Bose noise-canceling headphones, you may have better ones, but I have found, I'm very sensitive to noise, and I have found they really work, and they go in your ears, not the big ones. So it's easier to sleep on them. If I'm going on a really long flight, I even take a silk pillowcase, because you can put it over again the rough pillowcases on planes. And very important, if you're going to sleep on the plane, to avoid alcohol. It dehydrates you really badly, especially on a plane. And to drink, I carry with me soothing teas like lavender tea or a chamomile or licorice, and lavender spray. You know, do all these things to make it very soothing for you. And the most important thing is I have a dedicated iPod that has my favorite sleep meditations and my favorite soothing sleep music. And I have picked my favorite 12 sleep meditations there in an appendix of the Sleep Revolution. And also my sister and I wrote one, and she recorded it, and you can download it for free from ariannahuffington.com. And I promise you it will put you to sleep. So, you know, there are so many natural ways to go to sleep, even on a plane. You don't have to automatically take a sleeping pill, which many of my friends do because they think that's the only way to sleep on a plane. No, just be prepared, have all these things with you, and listen to a meditation. Even if you don't meditate, just listen to a meditation. It will put you to sleep.
Thank you.
Just one thing. In my acting dream class, the tip the teacher had to remember your dreams was to ask yourself to remember the dream. So as you went to bed, you would write, please reveal my dreams to me tonight, in your little book. And somehow everyone, you know, was like, oh, yeah, sure, it'll work. But it did. It was somehow that trigger of deciding to ask did help people remember who wouldn't usually.
Absolutely. That's scientifically the case, that your conscious is telling your subconscious, I value you. I value the communications you have for me. So please make sure your communications are clear, and I will remember them.
I think just our last one up the back.
Hi, I'm Pamela Tate. I'm the Director of Special Events at the Guggenheim. And given my special events background and working on events that kind of stick with you, no matter what I do in the middle of the night, I can't turn my mind off. And I try meditation and calming music, but is there anything that you could recommend that would help turn off that monkey mind?
Do you have a transition to sleep? What's your ritual before you go to sleep?
I really don't have one.
Are you normally
strictly.
like on your phone and until the last moment? Just describe a typical night.
Probably until the last moment. On my phone, I do wear a sleep mask. I find that quite helpful, and I've tried to, embarrassingly, I have sleepy tea, anything like that.
But the key thing is what you just said. If you're on your phone until the last moment, you have not given your brain a chance to slow down. So that's what wakes you up in the middle of the night. So the key to waking up in the middle of the night and being able to go back to sleep is what you do before you go to sleep at the beginning. So that's why this transition to sleep is so critical. And if you give yourself half an hour before you go to sleep to create your own ritual, you don't have to have my ritual, but I would recommend two parts to the ritual. One is taking off all your devices out of your bedroom half an hour before you're going to turn off the lights, and the other is having a bath or a shower, just something that kind of begins the process of disconnecting from the day, washing away the day, and then creating any other rituals you want, and in terms of what books you read, what you wear in bed, keeping the lights low, trying to have your bedroom as uncluttered as possible, and as devoid of work things. Even if you have like a drawer when you can put them all so that they're not around. And your nightstand, I think creating a nightstand that's a little bit like an altar. Because if you think of it now, we spend a lot more money and attention on our coffee tables than our nightstands. And if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, you'll see many pictures of my nightstand and nightstands that people have sent that are really simple, but they have something you love, a picture of something you love, a candle, a flower, just things that are very soothing just before you go to sleep. It cannot be a recharging station. Try it and let me know. Remember, Arianna at HuffingtonPost.com.
Thank you.
Everyone, I just wanted to thank you so much for being here and for your great questions. And to Arianna, you've started the revolution here tonight. You've already started mine. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And also, we have Arianna for just a few minutes. So if you do want to buy a book, they're at the back here, and she will sign them for you. Thanks.